Start our discussion today with a little bit about my own community, since this presentation is indeed about communities. So just wanted to let you know that I grew up in a huge family, a large family, huge Catholic family. We just had St. Patrick's Day, of course. And I was the smallest of many people in this family. I used to get beat up a lot, like all the time, all these huge guys in my family, right? So we'd wrestle and we'd fight and have fun, what we called having fun, right? Including the time that we called it fun to flush my cousin Colette's shoes down the toilet, or at least I tried to, right? But besides a few soaked shoes, a lot of broken furniture in our household with all the guys in the house, right? Some scrapes and bruises. You can imagine when I was finally big enough to discover video games, so I could really balance out the power dynamic that was within my family. And there I am when I was finally old enough to discover games. So fast forward to my teenage years, and for some of you in the audience who really like world domination strategy games, this may bring back some fond memories for you. My favorite was Civilization. I don't know if we have some old-time Civilization fans in the house. There we go. So I really reveled in beating all of my friends and family in this game. But as I look back on my experience with playing all of my friends and family, I really cherished being with them in the game. So I really liked the community that I had while I was playing. Now, back then, it was an offline community around a couch, like this one right here, and usually with a big screen TV, a game console in front of us, lots of McDonald's and things like that on the table. But the reason that I really played, even now to this day, as an online community holds true, right? It's whether we're checking out a new game that someone found, playing it because we got all super competitive in it, or figuring out finally how we could get that last object to win. And I think this is something important to consider when we're thinking about the growth of the mobile gaming market. So traditionally, we look at, as we've seen in a lot of our sessions today, high-paying and the average mobile-paying gamers. And of course, high-paying gamers are always going to be in the upper bracket of spending, as we've seen. But there's another group around the world that draws on a lot of the aspects that I was talking about at the beginning of this presentation, the community aspects, that we may not have paid enough attention to thus far. And we've called them, so far, community gamers. And we think they're worth looking at because of their unique growth, driver within mobile gaming, including what's important to people when they're playing with each other, and of course, how much they're spending above and beyond the average mobile gamer. So to this end, we did a study across 9 markets in which we talked to almost 9,300 mobile gamers around the world and sought to understand exactly how community gamers compare to other mobile gamers and what drives their gaming behavior. So this group of people plays games primarily for the social aspect of playing, of being together, as opposed to just passing time when they're at the grocery store, standing in line, or killing a few minutes before they have to go to their next meeting, which of course I never do because I know my manager is in the audience and she would be upset if I told her that. But in any event, these are not your typical mobile gamers. They're engaged in the social experience, and they see it as a social channel of connection with others. And they're not only a significant share of mobile gamers around the world, but they also can have a strong influence in how people find games, how long they play, and of course, how much they spend on their gaming experience. So based on that research, I'd like to talk to you about 3 characteristics of what we've learned about community gamers, which is, of course, 1, how they discover games. 2 is the role of engagement and how that helps to drive gameplay. And 3 is their willingness to spend more on their gaming experience. So let's start with how community has an outsized effect on game discovery, both in terms of how they discover games, but also when they stop playing them. So generally, finding the right new game is kind of a hard thing to do, isn't it? Many of you in the audience know this because you probably experience it every day. It's not always easy to find a really interesting, fun, awesome game that you really want to get into and spend your time. It's like that feeling when you're looking for, the perfect sushi restaurant, and you're stuck with so many options that you just don't know which one to go with. It's kind of like that in gaming as well. In fact, more often than not, the average mobile gamer just sort of wings it most of the time. And without any strong clues from others, may just select at random a game if he actually ever gets around to doing it. And this is where the community gamer and his or her network really becomes a key differentiator in game discovery. These clusters of community networks encompass a large group of people across geographies who are engaged to help each other find new games to play. So you can see here 1 in 3 gamers in the US, mobile gamers in the US. So based on that research, whether we're here in the US, in Canada, or even countries like Japan, community gamers heavily influence each other's decision to download new games. And they're thus more likely to reward you by bringing over their whole crew to your game. And as a plus, they're also more interested in knowing more about the experience and the intricate detail of the game. They tend to be heavier researchers. So think about it. Instead of targeting just individual, single, high-paying mobile gamers, with community gamers, you may get entire groups of people, sometimes around the world, to test and ultimately download your game. And for context, there are about 340,000 gaming-related groups on Facebook. And of course, while not all of these groups encompass only exclusively community gamers, you can imagine the power of those community connections that they have that help them to discover new games. And of course, as a plus, they may also give you a higher return on your game since they tend to spend more. But I'll get to more of those details in a second. So it's exciting to know that communities discover games together. And to support that excitement, it's important to make sure that they have the opportunities to engage with each other so that they enjoy the full benefits of the social experience. Because while community gamers are more likely to download your game and buy your game together, they're also more likely to stop playing the game if their friends have lost interest and are no longer engaged. So that brings us to the next area of what's driving community gamer behavior, the role of engagement, and of keeping them around so that they continue to be invested in and maintain excitement in your game and playing each other or against each other within it. Now, community gamers, maybe not surprisingly, are highly engaged. They tend to be highly engaged with each other, both during and in between gaming. A community, after all, is built upon the communication that flows among and, of course, from each of its members. And I know that we've all experienced this euphoria at some point. Otherwise, it ceases to be a community. Community gamers, of course, are no exception to this. In fact, whether it's the relatively high level of messaging during the game, to the fact that they're more than 3 times more likely in the US to share about their gameplay to the broader social network that they have, even in the middle of the game. Or perhaps it's engaging live with each other about the action in the game, including sometimes using AR, or using this same interactive form of communication, just helping each other figure out which way to go next in the game. Whatever the type of engagement, community gamers are connected, and they keep their friends focused more on the game through these connections. And so they're important because they reinforce the shared experience of the game and encourage people to spend more time playing together. In fact, community gamers in the US are almost twice as likely as other mobile gamers to play for more than 3 hours a day, which reminds me of all the fun and, of course, even all the physical benefit that I've had running around this fair city of San Francisco playing Pokemon Go. But that's my own personal challenge I have to deal with. But I was with my community, so it was important. But in any event, this isn't just a US phenomenon. It's actually fairly consistent worldwide. In other countries we looked at, such as South Korea or Japan, community gamers are even almost 4 times as likely as other mobile gamers to play games for extended periods of time. And again, this is over 3 hours a day or more. But while they tend to play together, community gamers are also expecting to increase their gameplay time with others in the future. So as an example of that, across 4 of the countries that we surveyed, community gamers were much more likely than other mobile gamers to say that they plan on increasing their time playing. So driving this intent, maybe not surprisingly, is the desire for the shared experience of social connection and interaction. So looking at a common phrase differently, time not only flies when you're having fun, it may also increase if you're a community gamer. But we didn't just stop there in our research. We also wanted to look at this from a genre perspective to make sure that we were understanding what we were seeing within our study with regards to this behavior and time spent playing. Because as you can imagine, different games, of course, last different periods of time. A racing game may last a short period of time, whereas an RPG game may last longer. But even across all of these genres, sports and others, compared to other mobile gamers, community gamers across all of these types and other genres also expected their time play to increase in the future relative to other mobile gamers. So essentially, regardless of geography that we looked at, whether that's the US, Canada, Japan, others that we looked at earlier, or genre, community gamers are expecting to be together longer in the game across continents and environments. So of course, with increased gameplay time, there's more opportunity within the game, of course, to spend more and invest more on the experience. So let's take a step back. So we've heard a lot of numbers today. Here's one more number, of course. Looking at the global growth projection into the next decade, expected to reach $100 billion in revenue in the not too distant future. So to put this into a little bit of context, this is a large number. Right now, this value stands at about $70 billion. So we're talking about an increase in the size of the annual revenue of companies like Netflix, MasterCard, and Salesforce combined. And community gamers appear to have a significant effect on this growth into the next decade, and that they're also fueling, through their relatively outsized spending, all of this growth in mobile gaming. So in the US, for example, they're over twice as likely as other mobile gamers to spend money on buying a game or on an in-game experience. But you can also see from our research that across countries that we surveyed, this trend appears to be true as well in other countries, including up to almost 4 times as likely in the UK. But again, we didn't just want to stop there. We wanted to know exactly how much they were planning on spending. So what we did was, based on what people estimated on their spending was within a month, we broke this into 3 different tiers, a low, middle, and high tier. With the highest tier being, in the US, about $50 more a month. And what we found is that regardless of country, community gamers are more likely to be in the upper bracket of spending. And in some cases, like in Canada, in France, in Japan, this is twice as likely to be in the top tier of monthly spending. So you may ask, what's driving all this greater spend? Well, across the board, one reason, of course, is that they're driven by their social experience. We're going to come back to this. In almost all countries surveyed, community gamers told us that they are much more focused on things that are at the core of player interaction, whether it's getting the better motor for their car, if it's a racing game, if it's the more advanced technology to fly faster in terms of competition with others between worlds, or it's just to look cooler than your friends in the game. So it's important to keep these in mind when thinking about things like design or marketing or any other experience that you're trying to design for your mobile game. Now, there may be some of you out there who are also asking about community beyond mobile. I'll give you an example of that as well. On PC and console, we've also seen community be a great driver for increased engagement and spending. Last year, we rolled out the ability for developers and publishers to reward fans for watching streams of their games. So we rolled out these campaigns with companies like Rockstar, Blizzard, Ubisoft for The Division 2, World of Warships, and more. In one particular example from that rollout, Hi-Res Studios incorporated these in-stream rewards into their game, a game called Paladins, which is a team-based shooter game for PC and console. Hi-Rez had already partnered with us to successfully support the sense of community for active players of the game. But to help promote even more excitement for the broader community, Hi-Rez also worked with us to reward people for watching others play via Facebook Live. This increased things like player engagement by 2x, spending from players who received in-stream rewards by 3x, and ultimately expanded the community even beyond active gameplay. So expanding it beyond the core to the periphery, and of course, looking at the interplay between the two. So what does this all mean for you? I'll leave you with 3 considerations, the magic number of the day throughout many of our sessions. So the first one is that community gamers discover and influence each other as a group. So engaging them effectively can unlock a large growth opportunity for your game. So they'll reward you potentially by bringing their entire virtual neighborhood over to you instead of just maybe one high-spending individual. The second is that community gamers have a higher likelihood of being active communicators both during and in between gameplay, which drives longer time in the game. So ensure that you focus on how messaging, for example, can be a meaningful part of the gaming experience. And the third one, and I think this last one, I was trying to think about this as I was writing this presentation. I believe it's kind of a chicken-egg question for me, at least. Is it the community that's inherently driving spend or more spend in the game? Or is it the spending within a lot of different people to one-up each other driving community, kind of like trade between nations? But whatever the case may be, we can talk about it, of course, after this. Community gamers are spending more to engage each other. So think about how you can incorporate things like, obviously, in-app purchases or tailor in-app purchases, or thinking about things like in-stream rewards to be able to drive social elements like collaboration, cooperation, and of course, engagement and re-engagement across the community. Now, if this was helpful for thinking about the next evolution in people's behavior, then I encourage you to sign up for our Facebook IQ newsletter. In it, you'll find insights like these and more related to people, gaming, of course, advertising effectiveness, and our suite of interactive data tools to help you understand consumer behavior, drive more effective marketing, and ultimately transform how you reach people and, of course, their communities. I look forward to meeting you this week. Have a great GDC.